Welcome back to another episode of the Odd or God Pod, where we talk about sobriety, spirituality, and everything in between. This week we have a very special episode. We are coming at you live from the River Source IOP building out here in Gilbert, Arizona, a place that's very special to me personally. Back in 2020 when I went to treatment, I did the full stay here at the River Source, did 30 days down at their Arizona City location, and then completed IOP and PHP at this location that we're filming at. I do appreciate everything that the River Source does for the community, and thank you guys so much for letting us shoot our episode here today. This week's episode, very special episode. We've got a great guest. He's doing a lot of great things for the community, and we're gonna just learn a little bit about what it was like, what it's like now, and what he's doing every day to maintain his spiritual connection. So I'll stop rambling on here and let him introduce himself. Everybody, Trevor.
Thank you, Eric, for having me. My name's Trevor. This place is also super important to me, too. Just like Eric, I did the full continuum. I did inpatient. I did PHP, IOP, and the outpatient. And coming up on 9 months. I'll have 9 months next Tuesday. So it happens very fast. But I'm an alcoholic. Used a lot of drugs, too, but alcohol was the main problem. Alcohol is what destroyed my life. It, like with everything, it started off fun. The parties, the social aspect, the friends, everything like that. And then, like it always does, things happen while you're drinking. So the traumatic events, all these little things, everything combines, and then it becomes a coping mechanism. And that's exactly what happened to me. I went on about a 9.5 year run, and in that 9 years, call it 9 years, I had 3 weeks of sobriety straight. I had little moments where I'd have a day or two, but nonstop trying to do it on my own, I only had 3 weeks. So definitely was needed. Definitely had a wake-up call. Multiple wake-up calls during that process. Nothing worked, as we know, until I was broken down and beaten down enough to where I finally asked for the help. And thank God I did, and then I ended up at this place, and now I'm a case manager here. I work here. So do a lot of giving back when I can, have my home groups, have my service commitments, helping all the clients here. So do just about everything in my power to not only feel good here, but help the next person out. Someone was literally in my position 7-8 months ago. So it feels good.
That's awesome, man. I always love when I see people go get jobs in treatment, because it's so cool, because you're right. You're sitting in rehab and people will come in with like H&Is and you're like, kind of like, yo, screw this guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why am I here? He doesn't get my story. I'm unique. And then if you stick around and start working in, the program and then get a job in recovery, it's cool to see that progression. Absolutely. But I do want to just take it back a quick second and just let's touch on what it was like, right before you made the decision to go into treatment. Like, what prompted that? Was there some sort of like burning bush moment where you realized that you needed help, or what did that look like?
So it kind of started off slow. I had the family interventions, I had the legal issues, I had all these things building up. And then it was right before St. Patrick's Day, went on another bender. I was up for multiple days in a row, hanging out with my buddy, and something triggered me. I got a little bit upset. Next thing you know, I'm on the phone in tears, called my mom, called my dad, and just said, I'm ready to go to rehab. I need help. Something needs to change. So that was my lowest bottom, like we always say, and I finally reached it. And like I said, thank God I did.
Is this your first time?
Yeah.
Trying to stay sober? This was your first time in treatment?
Yeah, very first time. So like I said before, I tried doing this on my own, and I had that 3 weeks. And then this is my first time in any type of program, treatment, anything more than me. This is the first time.
Wow. And what was that like with your stay down in residential and then the progression from PHP to IOP? Yeah. Walk us through that.
So the main thing that I noticed getting into inpatient was, it was very nerve-wracking, not knowing anybody. I was on detox, and I was actually quarantined on detox because I had COVID. I didn't have any symptoms, but I could not leave my detox room for 6 days. So everybody else in detox were already allowed to go to the meetings, meet staff, meet other clients, things like that. So I was quarantined in that room, and then I remember that first day transferring to residential side, and I was just shelled up, nervous, sweating, red, the heart's racing, all those feelings. And right off the bat, people introducing themselves and asking if I just got here, what my story was, what are you here for, all those types of things. And then what really solidified, that I'm in the right place with those God shots. It was my very first meeting in residential side. We were doing an evening review, so we were reading a part of the big book. And I always explained to like friends and family, like the vicious cycle. But I never heard that term outside of myself saying it until I got into treatment. And it was my turn to read a section out of the book. In the very first chapter, the vicious cycle, what I read. And that to me was like, wow. A week before that, I was just driving to Arizona City, talking to my mom, explaining to her the vicious cycle. And then first meeting, vicious cycle. It was pretty cool. And then God shot after God shot after God shot. So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
that's cool. To kind of just like because it's like we always feel like we're so unique when we're in active addiction, and we feel like nobody really understands what we're going through. And then, like you said, you like read this book and you're like, wow, actually they explained it pretty perfectly, like all of that inner turmoil that's been going on. And that's cool that you're able to identify with that like right off the bat, like when you went into treatment. Let's just kind of dive deeper into that, because a big part of active addiction is, yes, it's the physical craving for drugs or alcohol, but a lot of it centers in our minds, and it's like that feeling of just not fitting in, that feeling of not being okay with who you are or comfortable in your own skin. A lot of that inner turmoil is what drives us to have those mental obsessions to continue to use. I mean, what did that look like in your life, and how is it different now?
Great question. So speaking of like the feeling uncomfortable thing, I've always felt, especially I'd say after middle school, like that black sheep of the family. I would only feel comfortable in myself, so I thought, when I was drinking or using, when I was with people who were like me, whether they had a problem or not. If we were doing something, drinking, partying, anything like that, I felt comfortable. I remember, like I said, all the way back to like middle school, and going forward, just feeling like that black sheep, being at family events, being at birthday parties, being at the holidays, and just feeling uncomfortable, feeling awkward, feeling just out of myself. And then, my first drink was 13, and I believe that, 8th grade, so that middle school age. And then from there, it was just only comfortable when I had that, I had that feeling, that physical feeling.
Yeah, that sense of ease and comfort, as they describe it in the book.
Yep, because I didn't know myself. I was still trying to find it, so it definitely helped a lot, obviously, with this whole process, but it just really diving in and getting over that awkwardness and comfortable. I still feel that way at meetings sometimes, but usually that's because if I know I'm slacking on anything, getting complacent, then I'll get that uncomfortable feeling. But as soon as I even vocalize that at a meeting or in a situation like this on a podcast, I feel better.
Right. Yeah, talking about it, the more you talk about it, the less power it has over you.
Absolutely.
As, they kind of, it was explained to me that way when I was new in sobriety. And what I love is that you're kind of touching on something that's a big part of the program. Whichever 12-step program you work, there's some major like similarities across all of them. And one of them is what we refer to as like the bedevilments, right? Restlessness, irritability, and discontentment.
The RIDS.
And the RIDS, as you would say. And, those are, for drug addicts and alcoholics like us, I mean, those are the things that really eat away at us on a daily basis. And it's like they say, it's not the bear that eats your lunch, it's the ants, right? And like that's what I think, those little like instances throughout the day where I get frustrated with something that somebody said, and I carry that with me, and then all of a sudden someone cuts me off in traffic, and now that compiles onto what I was already irritated about.
Then it goes straight to here.
And it goes straight to my head, and I start picking apart everything that's wrong with that situation, and I convince myself that if it was up to me, these things wouldn't happen. Like if I was ruling the world, like everything would be like for the best, right? And that's a lot of what alcoholism is that like inner turmoil where we can't accept life on life's terms, and we feel like if we were in charge, things would be better. And like that is what continues that inner turmoil of like, now I'm restless, irritable, discontent. I'm not happy with the situation, and I'm not happy with people in my life. And all of these other things stem from the fact that I struggle as an alcoholic to accept life on life's terms. I mean, you probably, you're nodding your head, so I know that, that resonates with you a little bit. I mean, what's your experience with being in recovery and like learning how to just live in more acceptance of the things that you can't change?
Another great question. So, I mean, I deal with that every single day, especially once I got to step 6 and 7. For me, 4 and 6 and 7 have been the most impactful, just because, 4 is getting all my BS out, but 6 and 7, read a great book called Drop the Rock, 4 step 6 and 7. And, identifying my character defects in step 4, that's one aspect of it for me. If I'm aware of them, awesome. Better to have awareness than none at all. But if I'm not applying any action, if I'm praying, say, God, I'm ready to remove these character defects, but all I'm doing is being aware and then praying, I'm not taking any action. So that constant having that awareness is the first step, praying about it, and then actually applying action to not do those things that I'm worried about. And that really solidifies, that I'm doing not only the best I can, but it's working. Because I'm not taking any action, I'm just praying something's going to change, but still doing it.
Faith without works is dead.
Exactly. So that's definitely been very helpful.
So what would you say your favorite step is out of the 12 steps?
I love each of them for different reasons.
Maybe which one was the most impactful for you when you were going through the steps?
Step 2, when I read the 12 and 12 after completing it, I remember being in tears reading the 12 and 12. Just that everything it talked about, and there was that example of, you have this faith and belief in everything around you. I have faith in this couch because I know it's going to hold me. And it used the example of the guy in the kayak in the water. He trusts the kayak even though he's in the water. And if I have faith in something, and I know I'm going to get there, it's trusting that the kayak's going to take me to that island. And once I reach that island, but if I'm just having no faith in anything, I'm just going to be sitting in the water. I have a kayak around me, but there's water all around me. I'm not going to get to that point.
Did you grow up religious, or did you have a higher power in your life before being introduced to the 12 steps?
Yes. So I was actually raised Mormon. My mom and dad were very Mormon. My mom was born in Utah. My dad was very heavily Mormon, grew up in a cowboy household. And then I remember going to Mormon church and doing the Sunday school and things like that up until, 4th or 5th grade. And then no church, no religion, nothing like that until 6th grade. And then I got baptized Christian with my mom. Kind of really only going to church for the main holidays, Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas.
The big three.
And then once I started drinking and getting into that addiction, then it turned into hating God, blaming God, only asking for material things. So I didn't have a really solid relationship and foundation because there were so many gaps, and it was also not my decision to go to Mormon school or go to Mormon church, and do all these things. It was just, the family's going, so I'm going to go. So I was just kind of, it started that resentment.
Would you say you had a prejudice towards God when entering the program?
I definitely, in a way, yeah. I definitely chose to not have a relationship. I didn't want to, just because I blamed all the things that happened to me or that I didn't get something on God,
Wow. And after going through the steps, what does that look like for you? How did you regain a relationship with a God of your own understanding?
Kind of back to the God shots thing. When those first couple weeks in inpatient started happening, because to me the God shots are so important, because mathematically some of those things should not even be possible. I'm more likely to win the lottery with some of these things that have happened to me these past 8.5 months. And just those God shots solidified that, and then I started praying, and then I started meditating, doing all the cliches, the things suggested. And honestly, I do have a beautiful relationship now. I feel like I can talk, I can vent, I can pray for other people. And it's very rarely praying for myself. I don't ever ask for anything for myself other than strength, faith, hope, courage, and guidance to keep doing the next right thing.
That's awesome, man. And you touched on meditating as well, which is a big part of the program that I feel like a lot of people struggle with, especially early on. What does that look like for you? Like, how were you introduced to the practice of meditation? And when do you take time to just get still and quiet with God throughout your day?
If I remember, the first time I met you was actually at a meditation meeting. So that's a good question. I've always heard about it, and just like with the God thing, I was kind of against meditating, yoga, anything spiritual like that, just because it was a pride and ego thing. I'm too manly to do these things, and self-care, And then I started going to a meditation meeting at Pigeon Coop, doing it at home. We've done it when I was in outpatient here, we did it, and it really is a practice. I have horrible sits sometimes, and I have amazing sits, but just the fact that I can sit there and have the discipline for 5, 10, 20 minutes, whatever it is, whether I get something out of it or not, to me, it's still a really good practice and habit.
Yeah. And I love how you touched on that, because it's not like you're not going to have a spiritual experience every time you meditate, but I think you hit the nail on the head where if you're making the effort to at least reserve, even if it's just like 3 to 5 minutes every day, to just force yourself to slow down and be still in that present moment, over time, you build that discipline of understanding that a lot of alcoholism and drug addiction stems from some really core character defects, and fear is in the middle of a lot of them.
Absolutely.
And so we get so fearful of what's going to happen, or we get scared that we're going to lose what we built, or that we're not going to get what we want, right? And a lot of decisions, it says that we're pretty much ran by 1,000 forms of fear, right? And so in the middle of everything that makes me uncomfortable is some sort of fear. And so being able to ground myself and get still and just be conscious of the present moment is a great way to kind of combat a lot of those anxieties and fears that creep up. So
absolutely. I always start my meditation with a prayer, and then like someone says at the meeting all the time, it's like leaves on a stream. Whether they're positive or negative thoughts, just let your mind go, and that's exactly what I do, and it definitely works.
That's awesome, man. I did want to touch on something as well. So, what does your daily routine look like? I know some people set aside time in the morning to meditate. Some people like to meditate more reflectively at the end of the day. I mean, what does your routine look like from kind of getting your day started, going to work, and ending your day?
Another great question. So, definitely have been slacking and meditating in the morning, I'll be honest. But always wake up, shower, brush my teeth, the self-care stuff, get ready for work, prep anything that I need to bring to work, anything like that. And then, work 8 to 4. After that, I usually pray a little bit throughout the day, especially if anything negative comes up, whether it's at work or a text or Facebook, something. And then I leave work, go home. I really enjoy meditating before bed the most. I would like to start doing it in the morning more. But my brain is always the most active right before bed, like most of us are, if not all of us. And takes away that, like we talked about, that fear, the worry, the anxiety. And when I meditate before bed, I sleep better. I don't have crazy dreams. I sleep through the night. I don't wake up 5 times, So the meditating, praying before bed, and then again the self-care thing before bed. So pretty simple. I would like to add a little bit more. Obviously a meeting. I'm not going to 7-8 a week anymore, but I'm hitting 4 to 6. So whenever there is a meeting, that's also part of the routine.
Dude, I love that. And a big part of the program is practicing gratitude. And I remember I was always taught gratitude is more of an action rather than a feeling, and a lot of what we do on a daily basis should reflect our gratitude for the program, our gratitude for God, and everything else that we always like to say, oh, I'm grateful for this, that, and this, but sometimes the way we live our lives doesn't accurately reflect that.
Yep.
I mean, what are some of the actions that you put in your daily life to show gratitude for the life that you've been given?
Great thing about that, because I forgot to add that into my routine. I do a gratitude list every day with my sponsor. And for me, the gratitude thing, you touched on it, I kind of just say it as if I'm just saying I'm grateful for something and I'm not really digging into the root of it. So if I get to the root cause of, like my defects or my actions, really think about why I'm grateful for this thing, how it makes me feel, how it impacts my life, rather than just saying I'm grateful on a surface level, really helps me weigh out if I'm truly grateful for something or if I'm just trying to put it on a list to text my sponsor.
Right. Yeah, not just checking the box,
Exactly.
but really putting some meaningful action behind what you're doing and being intentional.
Yep.
You know, I call that being intentional with your recovery. And my personal experience, you know, I've been around for years in recovery, and I've had some time before and relapse and had some trouble coming back. And a big thing that I was able to identify this time around with my sponsor was that there came a point each time in my different lengths of sobriety where I stopped being intentional with what I was doing, and it became more of a routine rather than
complacency.
Yeah, it was like complacency rather than you know, really putting thought and sincerity behind what I'm doing. So it's good to hear that you really are putting a focus on that. I know just working in recovery, a big thing that I've heard, and we've had some guests on the podcast talk about this as well, is not crossing that line with letting working in recovery become your program.
Yep.
What do you do with being able to separate your job, which is working for a treatment center, and your own personal recovery program?
Yeah, so I was actually worried about that before I started working in recovery, you know, that I would, just because I'm helping people and I'm around so much recovery, that I would make that my new higher power. And I guess the best way to explain it is that I don't take work home with me. I don't download any of the apps for work or any of the software, anything like that. Nothing's on my phone or personal computer. So when I leave here, even if something's going on, if it's an emergency, obviously they need to call me. But separating that, leave work at work, keep home, you know, personal life, recovery, work, all separate things. Because if I start putting this as my, instead of meetings or instead of sponsor or step work or inner work, and I'm just relying on this just because I'm helping people, I'm going to go downhill pretty quick because it's going to be my new crutch, just like drinking was. So like we always trade one addiction for another, I'm going to justify.
Right. No, that's good advice, man. And I think it's helpful, you know, for people that work in recovery. That's a common thing that gets brought up a lot, is just being able to understand that, you know, your job here is a lot of like, yes, you are holding people accountable and you are helping them like maintain sobriety through that structure, but it's not your own personal program. And so I did want to switch gears here real quick and kind of just talk about relationships, because that's, you know, usually you're at the 9-month mark, which is around the time where like you really do start mending a lot of those relationships with your family or, you know, those closest to you that were really damaged in active addiction. I mean, how has working the principles of the 12 steps helped you in both of your personal and romantic relationships?
Honestly, the first and biggest thing that it's been helping with is communication. Because in my addiction, I used to think I was an amazing communicator and I always vocalized, you know, my opinions, but it was just trying to get my way and control and communicating, you know, even what happened for the day. 'Cause I remember even being back in school, you know, how's your day been? Or what'd you do? I was good, fine, nothing. And I used to be that way with personal relationships, with friend relationships, with family, with all those things. And really just being honest and trying to have a conversation with those people, just communicate what I'm doing, you know, what's going on with my friends, what's going on with just everything around me, and really setting boundaries too with family, friends, with my girlfriend. Because if I don't have any boundaries and I keep changing my own boundaries, I don't stick to them, the communication goes out the window, the old habits start, all the cliches creep up, and they're right behind you at all times. So definitely communication is, I'd say, the first thing I thought of, biggest one for me.
That's a great answer, man. I liked how you explained that. Now, I do want to ask this as well. Selfishness and self-centeredness, we're taught in the program that that's the main driver of all of our behaviors, is putting ourselves in the middle of everything and not God. What are you doing on a daily basis to rid yourself of those self-seeking motives?
Kind of goes back to the, you know, the awareness thing and my character defects, and if I'm aware I'm being selfish, I really try to separate, okay, is it a justified, healthy selfish? Like doing something for program or boundaries, that's healthy selfish. But if it's still that manipulating, lying, anything like that, I'm usually pretty good about catching it beforehand. But just really getting outside of myself and not just saying fuck it, not just doing whatever I want. Oh, I'm working a program, I'm doing this, I do all these things so I can just do whatever I want. Not getting in that mode and mindset again.
How would you explain your gratitude for sobriety?
How would I explain it? I mean, whether I went to this treatment center or another one, I needed the help. And first and foremost, God, higher power, I'm the most grateful for. But fellowship would come second, because if I didn't meet half these people that I met in here, I'd probably still keep the same friends. Even if I started working a program, I'm going to slack on everything, get complacent again. But like I said, just really getting to the root of why I'm grateful for those things. Why am I grateful for God? Why am I grateful for the river source? Why am I grateful for amending those relationships, or even the bad things I'm grateful for? If I'm being completely honest, I'm genuinely grateful for the things that I caused or were done to me, because I don't know if it would have taken another 5 years, 10 years, however long to get to this point. Maybe I never would have gotten to this point. So really just being not only accepting of the bad things that happen, but grateful for those as well.
That's awesome, man. For anybody watching that's early in sobriety, maybe they just relapsed and are having a hard time coming back, or maybe they're just on the fence about seeking help and going to treatment, do you have any words of encouragement or advice for them?
Absolutely. The one thing I like to say, whether it's friends or even clients here, if they're even outside friends, if they're trying to get help or trying to get sober, coming back from a relapse, is find even that 1% of hope, hold on to that, and keep doing that inner work. Because if you hold on to that 1%, it's going to keep growing. And not every single day is going to be 100% or 80% or 40%. But as long as it's not going back to that 1% or that zero, hold on to that, cling onto it for dear life, and keep working. And it's going to grow. It's going to stay consistent, because if you're not grasping onto something, you don't have any hope or faith in anything, higher power especially, and you can't hold on to that, you're going to let it go, and you're going to let it go off the cliff. You're not going to be able to pull it back up. So find something, hold on to it, whether it's a friend, sponsor, something you heard at a meeting, anything like that, hold on to it for dear life, and it'll grow. It'll get better.
I love that. To piggyback off of that, meetings. For somebody, if I were somebody who had no experience, no exposure to the 12 steps, how would you explain the importance of going to meetings?
I mean, the fellowship thing, I think, is the biggest part of it. And for me, what helped the most with meetings is, like most of us, I think I really was comparing, because I didn't do crack, heroin, and meth, that they were worse than me. Or somebody who was only smoking weed, I was worse than them because I was drinking. So I was either comparing in a negative way about myself, or comparing that I was better in some way. So really hearing everybody's stories, no matter what meetings I go to, because I go to HA, CA, NA, AA, no A, I go to all kinds of meetings, and constantly hearing the stories, the shares, all the things, it really helps get that comparison, that ego, that nobody's better or worse than any of us, because mentally up here, we're all miserable. We're either suicidal or depressed or all of the above. So just hearing other people's shares gets me out of my own bullshit, my own thinking.
Right. That's really good advice, man, because like to touch on what we started the episode off with, it's like we always feel like we're just terminally unique and that nobody understands us and that we're different than everybody else.
We're the only ones.
We're the only ones. We're the only ones who know how we feel. We're the only ones who have been through what we've been through, and focusing on the common ground and not trying to distance myself from my peers, especially within the program, is the first step to that open-mindedness, that willingness that it takes to like honestly do the program. So.
Yeah, and being able to lean on those people at meetings, whether you went to treatment with them or you just met them at a meeting, because there's been several times my sponsor's been out of town or on a flight or something, and I can't call him. So if I need something, you got to have plan A, B, C, D through Z. Because if you just have one thing and you're only person you vent to or talk to, and that's out the window, then this gives you a reason to say, I'm gonna throw in the towel.
Right.
You gotta have more options of people to call, to rely on, to even in good things and bad. You gotta have those people to lean on.
Right. Cool. Let's pause real quick. All right, and sorry about that little pause there, guys. If you heard any background noise going on, there's an alarm guy here who's working on the alarm system, so we're grateful. They're keeping the river source nice and safe.
Yep.
But if you are hearing that on the background, that's what that is. But the good thing is we are at the kind of back half of the episode, so we're gonna start winding down. There are a couple of shout outs that I wanted to do. First and foremost, just thank you guys for all the support that we're seeing across the board on social media. We did just hit 400 followers on TikTok, which is awesome. And we do appreciate you guys DMing us, just showing your support. Huge shout out to Andrew DeVore, buddy. We see you shouting us out on TikTok every day. I've been watching your stuff, man. I know you're going through some challenges right now, but it's awesome to see that, you're keeping your faith in God and that you're really doing what you need to do to make it through those tough times. And wanted to give you this quick little shout out and let you know that we appreciate all the love you show us. We're showing you some love, man. And also just a huge shout out again to Trevor for coming on last minute. I asked him yesterday to come on the podcast and he was ready to go. And he shared a lot of great insight into what life looks like, especially in those first 6 to 9 months of sobriety. And it's cool to see all the progress that you've made, man. Do you have any shout outs or anybody that you would like to, while you have the opportunity?
Anybody I told that I was going to be on it, keep watching, subscribe. Definitely grateful to be here. Thank you for asking me, and it was definitely would do it again. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna get wrapped up here because, as you guys can probably hear, they got some stuff going on. But thank you so much for tuning in. Also, huge shout out to PluggedIn Recovery. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next week.
See ya.